Hi boys and girls, as you can tell from the title of this video, we are going to be looking at the coming of the Europeans to the Caribbean. After watching this video, you should be able to name the different Europeans that came to the Caribbean, explain the reasons why they came, and name some territories they occupied when they came. So, let's get started. Now, you may be wondering, what is it that we mean when we refer to the term Europeans? Well, this term is used to describe people who are inhabitants of the many different countries in Europe. It is important to note that Europe is one of the 7 continents, and on this continent you can find several countries. The ones we are most interested in are the countries from which our ancestors originate. So, the European groups which came to the Caribbean include 1. The Spanish. They came from Spain. It also includes the English or the British, who came from England. Inclusive are the French, who came from France, and finally the Dutch, who came from the Netherlands. These are the 4 major European groups that came to the Caribbean. Now, the first European group to come to the Caribbean were the Spanish, and they were led by the man known as Christopher Columbus. Columbus was interested in obtaining wealth and in engaging in the spice trade with Asian countries such as India. So, he set out on voyages, or trips as we may call them, to find gold and to trade for spices. However, he wanted to find a shorter route to Asia. So, instead of traveling east, he decided to travel west, thinking it would be like a shortcut. Unknown to him, however, he came upon an island in the Caribbean called San Salvador, which we now know are called the Bahamas. The people he found there, he called them West Indians, thinking they were Indians. And that is how this section of the world got to be named or called the West Indies. This first voyage by Columbus was in the year 1492, long before you and I, or even our parents and grandparents were born. Yes, that long. Now, in the years to follow, Columbus made more trips to the Caribbean. The plan was to set up colonies for Spain. By colonies, we mean that each country the Spanish found, they would take over control of it, and then it would be governed by Spain. It was on his second voyage in 1494 that Columbus discovered our beautiful island, Jamaica. In total, Columbus made 4 voyages to the Caribbean, and while here, he and the Spanish people who came with him, they set up large farms on the islands they occupied, and these large farms were called plantations. Now, what did they do on these plantations? Well, while they were here, they reared cattle, goats, and horses. They built and repaired ships and boats, as well as they grew sugarcane, bananas, plantains, and citrus fruits. The growing of sugarcane, however, proved to be the most successful, as it helped them to make a lot of money. Now, there was another European group that was keeping an eye on what the Spanish were doing, and seeing how they were amassing wealth for themselves made them very jealous. This group was the English. Yes, the English became very jealous of the Spanish and decided that they too wanted to come to the Caribbean to get some of the wealth for themselves. Why keep it to yourself, Spain? So, the British, they came to the Caribbean, and guess what? In 1655, they fought with the Spanish for control of our country. And you know what? They won. They eventually chased the Spanish away from our shores, and they took control of our island in the name of the Queen of England. That is why it is said that we are a colony of England. So, when the British, they came, they conquered, they restored the sugar plantations that the Spanish had left behind, and they renewed the trading of sugar. So now they started to profit from this business, and to do this, they needed people to work on the plantations. And they sought those people who were the Africans, and the whole thing about slavery started. But we won't get into that in this video. We'll do that in another video. Now, apart from the Spanish and the British who came, there were the Dutch. They also came to the Caribbean. And unlike the Spanish and British, they came for different reasons. One reason why they came was because they wanted to establish themselves as traders. Their original intent was that they wanted to find a path to Asia through North America. But after finding the fur trade profitable, the Dutch claimed the area of New Netherlands. And New Netherlands, as we know it today, is the east coast of the United States. Yes, the Dutch, they engaged in a lot of trading with the Spanish, and eventually, in 1621, they too eventually got to raid some of these Spanish territories, and they claimed them for themselves, right? So that's one reason why the Dutch came. Another reason for coming to the Caribbean was that of finding salt. The Dutch were extensive users of salt, and in the 17th century, salt was very much sought after in Europe for the curing and selling of fish. Looking for new sources of inexpensive salt, the Dutch found a bonanza of salt in the Caribbean, and so they would go on to produce salt in what we know as the ABC Islands, which are Aruba, Bonaire, and Curacao. So, the Dutch, they eventually occupied and colonized Caribbean territories. Some of these territories included the ABC Islands, as I just said, as well as St. Martin, St. Eustatius, and Suriname. So these were the territories that the Dutch got to colonize. Now, what about the French? Well, they realized that the more lands the European countries possessed, the more powerful they were. So, in wanting to gain some amount of power as well, they were interested in trading and owning lands in the Caribbean. So, following the footsteps of the Dutch and the British, French settlers arrived in the Caribbean in the 1630s, and they established trading ports on the islands of Saint Domingue, which later was called Hispaniola, Martinique, and Guadeloupe. So those were some of the territories that the French colonized. Now, here, boys and girls, is a table that shows the different countries that were colonized by each European group. This is just a short table showing some of the islands. What I want you to do, boys and girls, is to conduct further research to find out about all the Caribbean islands and their colonizers. Now, what did we learn in this video? Well, let's review. From watching this video, you have learned that the different European groups came to the Caribbean for various reasons. And the different European groups included the Spanish, the English, the Dutch, and the French. Some of the reasons they came were that, one, they wanted to search for gold and to amass wealth for themselves. They also want to find new routes to Asia so that they could engage in the spice trade. Others came to engage in the transatlantic trade of sugar, fur, salt, among other things. Also, there were some who came mainly to establish colonies in order to amass power and dominance for themselves. So, there you have it, boys and girls. the reasons why the Europeans came to the Caribbean. Now, if you have made it this far to the video, I want to thank you for watching, and don't forget to share it with others so they too can learn as much as you did. Also, remember to subscribe to the channel so that you can get more educational videos such as this.